welcome again. So we don't run out of time. We'll stick into the program. Dr. Suhaili already spoken about what the association has done so far. We just take you through where we're heading from here. Just a reminder to everyone, at 4 o'clock we're going to have a cultural tea and coffee, so please stick around for socialization and gathering. It will be from 4 o'clock until 6:30. So the association has been working very hard over the last 18 months, and we've been working with the Westmead Children's Hospital, and we already get authority to do fundraising event through the hospital, and that will be next on the agenda. So we will be doing a big concert at Bankstown Sport Club for the sick children of Westmead, in particular to the Department of Oncology. That's on the 16th of February. So there's ticket outside there, so please speak to the volunteer staff at the front and buy ticket from today. It is for good cause. It will be at Bankstown Theatre. It is a fabulous theatre, and it will be a very well organized event. Since we thought we're doing something for our Australian kids, we thought we may as well, especially under these circumstances in our native country of Iraq, we thought we may do something for the Iraqi sick children and for the victim of violence, especially with what's happening these days. So next Sunday, there's going to be a musical gathering and fundraising for the victims of the violence, and that will be free entrance for all. It will be at 5 o'clock, and it will be behind Nainawa Club. Nainawa Club also called, apparently they changed to the Eden Venues, now it's called. So parking at the club itself, and the event will be behind the club at the football stadium. The coming year will be full of events, so our social department headed by Dr. Saif Al-Haik already organized a cruise, and that will be departing from Sydney to the Moreton Island. You could see in your brochures, you could directly go to the link, it's already written down there, go to the link directly and do your booking. Saif already tells me how many people we have, Saif, so far? 102 people so far booked on that cruise. So you're more than welcome to come and join us. It is for 4 nights from the 6th to the 10th of February. So please feel free. You don't need to notify us. Just book online and we will be there. In April, we're planning to have another gala dinner, and we haven't determined the exact date yet, but it will be another fabulous night. And finally, we've been talking to a lot of people, and we want you all to come and join us, please. I mean, it's been a lot of work for all our association to do this, and we will be handing over this in July to other people who are interested to take this association to the next level. So please come and join us from now, so it'll be a smooth handover. Just before I finish, I think it is important in this day to acknowledge what's happening in Iraq. I think it's a major revolution happening in Iraq in support of the Iraqi people, and just need to remind everyone here that there aren't many countries and people really suffered through the world as much as the Iraqi people. Especially in recent history, since the 1980s up until today, there's people getting killed for no reason, and there's people deprived from basic human rights for no fault of their own. So out of this misery, a message of hope, peace, courage, and bravery has come out. And it's impressive to see that message from people who don't really have a basic need. They don't even have a clean water to drink. Yet there is a message of wisdom coming from these people, saying that we are one, despite of our ethnic background, despite of our what religion or no religion we were born into. To see people on the street of Iraq holding these messages, that's a message spread out through Iraq, through not only the Arab, but the whole entire world. A message that we should utilize, consider, and implement in our daily living as a proud and patriotic Middle Eastern Australian by positively contributing to this nation of ours as one. Thank you. I'll pass now to my colleague, Dr. Suhaili, to present Iraqi achievers. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray. All right, our next session will be mainly to acknowledge a few Iraqi achievers. There are many achievers among us, and we hopefully will have the time to acknowledge more than a handful of people that we can honor today. So we will move on, we'll get on with this. So first I would like to acknowledge and introduce Dr. Faiq Isa. Dr. Isa was born in Basra and completed his medical degree at Basra Medical College in 1974. He then migrated to Australia. He completed his PhD at Sydney University in 1984 and was a member of the team that invented continuous positive airway pressure, the CPAP, that we probably all know that we use for treatment of sleep apnea. So without further ado, Dr. Isa will tell us about this invention.
Well, I arrived here in 1979 on a scholarship from the government of Iraq, probably the first Iraqi who is given a scholarship to Australia. I had lots of problems convincing the authorities that Australia is a good country for science and for medicine. I arrived here, virtually there were only about 50 families, Iraqis, in Sydney, and there was only one medical doctor who had arrived in the late 60s, and she was practicing medicine here. She arrived at the time when there were no exams and there was no Medicare. But when I arrived here, things have changed. In 1975, they have introduced Medicare and all the restriction on foreign medical doctors. I started at Sydney University. As I said, I've already organized doing a PhD with the University of Sydney at Department of Medicine. This was at the thoracic medicine. The plan was, as you know, in the medical colleges in Iraq, it's a 6-year program like the British system, and the first 3 years is basic science, and most Iraqi medical schools, there were deficiencies in the basic science professors. And the plan was to send Iraqi doctors to specialize in this field and go back to Iraq and become staff of the medical schools. I am going to talk in this 20 minutes history of 20 years of work at Sydney University and Royal Prince Alfred Hospital here in Sydney. We started working in sleep apnea at the time when nothing was known about control of breathing and sleep and how we breathe during sleep. In fact, the sleep was only added to the agenda of medicine in 1953 when the electroencephalogram was recorded for the first time. And in the late 60s, one Italian professor working in Sicily, one of the nurses noticed that the patient was hardly breathing during sleep. He will take a few breaths and then stop breathing. And it was a dilemma for the doctors then. This patient was in respiratory failure that could not be explained by any of the tests that they could do. And it was then the link between breathing and what happens in sleep in terms of breathing and what happens during daytime. And sleep apnea in mid-70s started to be defined thanks to the advancements in medical technology. Medical technology allowed to record breathing and record sleeping in the simplest form. in about mid-70s. I arrived, as I said, in 1979, and there was one assistant professor at that time at the Department of Thoracic Medicine, Colin Sullivan, and he had just come back from Toronto. He has done 2 years postdoctoral fellowship with another professor of respiratory, a pulmonologist and a respiratory physiologist. And Colin and I was his first PhD student, and we worked in sleep apnea. Colin had done his PhD in the Department of Physiology at Sydney University with Professor David Reed, who was a pioneer investigator of SIDS, Sudden Infant Death Syndrome. And David Reed had bought some equipment to record babies during sleep, and we were able to use that equipment to start our first work in sleep apnea. How I wanted to do research, this is a photo. I will show lots of photos from the photo album that I have. This is year 4 in medical school in Basra, and this is Dr. Joseph Maro. I think he's dead by now. And he tickled our mind about medical research. You don't hear the first heart sound, you don't hear the second heart sound, but you ask, why do we hear it, and why when we put the stethoscope here, we hear the sound much better, and how many of the symptoms and many of the treatments, you ask a question of why and where, and what is the alternative. So that instigated some spirit in asking questions. So here, I arrived here, and of course there are lots of challenges. As I said, you're here by yourself, no other doctors, no other people to speak at least your own language, and embarking straight away, no 6 months of language. Luckily, my language was considered to be good, so I enrolled straight away at Sydney University. We had to do medical research. The number one thing was the difference between the Iraqi market and the Australian market in terms of every little thing in life and in medical research. You need to know what's on the shelves in the market. That was number one challenge, and I'll show you a few things in the next few slides. And then how do you the transition from a clinician to a clinical researcher? You have to stop thinking of treating all the patients who come to you and zoom into one particular disease. And then, of course, I faced is the technology. Although I have worked in the medical city and I worked in the ICU, and we had sophisticated equipment in 1975, but this equipment, if anything wrong goes with this equipment, we have the maintenance department. We call the technician, and the equipment is taken out and replaced with another one, or it becomes vacant until it is repaired. And then when I worked at the medical school, we had also a very sophisticated lung function test, just been imported from Germany, and we had to learn how to use it. And I remember in this particular device, a little fuse, until we discovered it was a fuse, we had to wait for 3 months for a technician to come from Germany via Saudi Arabia, then to come to Basra to fix it. But here you are in a sleep lab, and I'm left alone. I have to learn all these equipment and all these wires and where they go, and which button to press if anything goes wrong. So it was a very steep learning curve to know all this technology. And after a few days, a few nights of doing sleep studies, this is our work, was doing all work at night, we had to learn all these little knobs and produce a record that is valuable to diagnose the case. Another thing is that the technology wasn't as it is today. I want to take you to 1979, where the equipment were rudimentary compared to what it is. This is an ear oximeter, We bought this for $11,000 at the time, and it was considered to be big technology. Now you buy a simple finger oximeter, it cost about $50. So the professor was always with an Iraqi PhD student with him, be careful, don't touch this. So technology-wise, it was difficult to start and continue the medical research. You have to make sure that all the equipments are functional. So I take you back to 1975 to 78, and this is at the time when I started, this is what we knew about sleep apnea. Sleep apnea is basically, it's a hidden disease. Patient is asleep alone, doesn't know what's happening because he's asleep. And if there is a bed partner, then the bed partner, usually the patient is male, this was considered socially to be acceptable. Who is the man who doesn't snore? In fact, the theory said that men started snoring when they lived in caves to scare the lions and the other wild animals. So here we are, we have an obstructive apnea where the patient takes a few breaths and then his upper airway closes. That's the upper airway, means the soft palate, the tongue, and the hypopharynx, they close. And then the oxygen saturation will go down, and that will wake up the brain to say, take a few breaths. Takes a few breaths, then the urge of sleep is very high during the night, and then he will go to sleep again and go into apnea again. And this can continue the whole night, and it gets worse in some parts of sleep because our sleep cycle is not uniform. We go through what we call non-rapid eye movement sleep and rapid eye movement sleep. And the severity of sleep apnea in the first few months that we started was unbelievable. I've seen patients where oxygen saturation goes to 20, which is with the PaO2 of close to zero, it's incompatible with life. But this is what we learned about sleep apnea, how severe it can be. So then, the common treatment at that time was, as you always expect from the surgeon, and excuse me, they bypass the problem and do a tracheostomy. That was the treatment at that time. A tracheostomy here, open in the neck. During the daytime, you put a plug, and patient can talk, and during the night, take the plug so that he breathes and bypass the area. There were other treatments like tonsillectomy and adenoidectomy, but that was mainly for children. And there was some medication treatment. There's protriptyline, which is an antidepressant. It basically affects the sleep cycle, so the patient is deprived of certain sleep cycle and avoid the worst part of the night with regard to the control of breathing. So how did we start thinking about sleep apnea? So there was tracheostomy. There were lots of fat people who had the sleep apnea, short, thick neck. And when you do tracheostomy, most of them will come with chronic infection, and the tracheostomy tube had to be closed. And when it's closed, then there is no other treatment. So we had a team. The building was like a quarter of this room here. And in it was all the staff of the Department of Thoracic Medicine. It's a social life, very simple, completely different to the way I used to work in Basra. The Department of Thoracic Medicine the head was Anne Wilcox. She was a world-renowned asthma specialist. She died in the late 1990. And then Colin Sullivan, as I said, he had just come back from Toronto. And Ivan Young was a high-altitude physiologist. Peter Bai was a restrictive young pulmonologist. And we have David Reed. As I said, he was a renowned scientist in the respiratory control, and he was working in SIDS. Another PhD student of his has become a neonatologist. He was working also in SIDS. And then we have one respiratory physician. He started his MD degree here at the time I started, and Michael Burton-Jones came about 3-4 months later and joined our group. And so we will meet all together in the department, have coffee together, have tea together, and we will talk about each one's interest. And we had another scientist from the UK. He was Roger Altonian. Roger Altonian was the inventor of Intal, and he was very much interested in nasal allergy at that time. And being from Syria, he and I, we started talking a little bit about the Arabic word. And Kwok Yan was also looking at the relationship between nasal allergy, hay fever, and asthma. So there was a lot of talk about the upper airway. If you remember also in the textbooks of medicine and anatomy, when they talk about the respiratory system in the old days, the respiratory system ended from here, and there's no upper airway in any picture of Gray's Anatomy or other books. So this was a new area to tackle. So the theory of sleep apnea, and talking, as I said, among the group about the importance of the nose and the upper airway, the theory was very simple. Push some air into the nose while the patient is asleep, so that this airway here, once you push through the nose, it pushes these structures that close, otherwise close in a normal in the patient during sleep, and keep the airway patent. The challenge was, how do you do it and keep the patient asleep? That was the challenge. So you are doing some work in a territory that no one has been done any work, and so we decided to use the CPAP. So the CPAP is pushing air through the nose, but this air is pressurized, so there is a problem. Maybe the lung will rupture, maybe it's too much pressure around the heart, so the patient will have cardiac complications. With high pressure going through the nasal mucosa, you might get bleeding, all kinds of problems that we thought could be happening. So it was a very careful research. As I said, ethics review, there was no ethics review at that time to approve this treatment. So this is the first CPAP machine that we used. And as I said, you have to know what's in the market. There was no bunning at that time, so you have to go to Mitre 10 and the likes, little shops, and find something that will help you create the instrument to apply that high pressure, the continuous pressure. So this tube is you all bought from Mitre 10. This is called a conduit. This is used to here they put electric wires through them. The headband we manufactured ourselves, and the conduit here you drill. This is all done in the department in our little workshop, and you put all these together, and then you pour some silicone. Now, to find the right silicone, we have to consult with few dentists and few plastic surgeons until we found Dow Corning was the best. This is me sleeping, also doing some research on the upper airway. This is, you'll say, who's the crazy guy who's going to sleep with this? Well, we had the sickest of the sickest sleep apnea. These are the first patient I showed you, that first slide. He was an executive with companies in Singapore. He will fall asleep during the board meeting. I'll show you a few slides of other patients. So we did this in the first 5 patients, and we decided to write this to Lancet. And the editor immediately accepted the paper without any reviewers. He said, I'm very happy with this, and definitely work. You don't have to prove to me in 200 patients that this treatment works. And the treatment did work. I'll show you what we used. Basically, it was a reverse vacuum cleaner. So you get the output of the vacuum cleaner, not the suction side, and you attach it to the tube, and you control the outflow, and that air the patient breathes in and goes with it the amount of pressure it needs to open the airway. And once the airway is open, we were very scared when the first time you apply CPAP, they go into 2 to 3 hours of REM sleep. REM sleep is we suppose only to have 10 minutes to 20 minutes. So, and the body is completely switched off from the brain. The brain the brain is doing some other computing functions, and we weren't sure if this is good or not. And it proved to be the best thing the patient can have after the treatment is a very long REM restoration of what it has been missing. Slowly we modified the blower, and we started using this mainly because of safety in case.
1 minute, 24.
Mainly because if the motor burns, it will not, the gases will not go into the lung. So slowly we modified the mask. We started making the fiberglass mask. We take impression of the nose, and then we make the mask here, and then that's what the patient took home. When we had about 50 patients, we wrote this, published this paper. Now this paper, and then we moved into central sleep apnea, and the last thing is is the invention of the bubble mask. The bubble mask is the pressure by itself. This soft part of the mask will stick to the nose, and the patient can sleep. The treatment was taken by the European, the Canadian, but not the Americans. The American felt a little bit jealous. How can the Australians think of it and we didn't think of it? So they called for a conference in Bethesda in 1986 and asked Colin Sullivan to go, but he couldn't go, so I went instead. And I sat with the top people in the field discussing whether the Department of Health should invest money into the field. And when I presented the data that we have about 100 patients by that time on home treatment, they immediately approved funding for sleep apnea, and the field grew since then. So much so in Australia, there was no item number in Medicare. In 1990, medical gases secured an item number for sleep studies, and by that time there were a few manufacturers of CPAP in America and in Europe and here in Australia. They started the sleep labs in 1990, and this graph shows how exponentially the number of sleep studies have been done. And I will close this here just to show what we started as a very small adventure nowadays is worth $10 billion industry.
Thank you, Dr. Isa. That was astonishing, really. Great talk, and we lived the journey with you, so thank you. Can I call for Dr. Banuti to present Dr. Isa with an appreciation plaque of his contribution to the health of a human being in general, a high-achieving Iraqi. Thank you. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce our second high Iraqi achiever among us. Dr. Munjid Al-Mudaris is an associate professor, orthopedic surgeon. He's a squadron leader in the Australian Air Force Reserve, a human rights activist, and a well-known orthopedic surgeon. So if I can call Dr. Mudaris.
Thanks very much, Sam, and thank you very much for inviting me to speak in your conference. Okay. Yep. Don't worry about it. I'll find out. Good afternoon, everybody. I think we're going through very tough times in Iraq, and I think Iraqi people deserve to be credited for the work and the challenges that they're going through. I think Iraq has been in turmoil since 1257, when Hulagu destroyed the walls of Baghdad, and since then we've been in a spiraling descent. Unfortunately, there have been some improvements in some times in the 60s and the 70s, but we are going through very, very tough times. At the moment, the country is in a turmoil of chaos. Iraqis are divided, unfortunately, and the youth have risen up and went down to the streets, calling for their rights, simple rights: education, electricity, water, jobs. And there are a lot of people talking about nationalistic ideas, and that we own the oil, and the oil belong to the people of Iraq. This is full load of bullshit, because the oil has gone from one family to hundreds of thousands of thieves and controlling the oil. So I think it's time that we all participate. And though we're living here in Sydney and Australia and other parts of the world, I think we need to contribute in what's going on back there, and because there must be a solution. Unfortunately, these young people out in the streets, they have no leaders. There's no leadership, and this uprising will vanish and disappear if we don't contribute and if we don't get involved. Unfortunately, the Americans have no interest anymore in Iraq, and regional countries are playing a major role in what's going on in that country. And so I call for help from everybody that living outside to participate, at least with something, either with a word on Facebook, or with contribution to people inside, or with thoughts, because we need that, and it maybe will be the last chance for Iraq to rise up against the tyrants that are coming from different places with backward ideologies, and trying to bring that country that was regarded as one of the most developed countries in the Middle East, and has gone back centuries to dark ages. So I think the solution for the country is to dissolve the parliament, remove all the current leading parties, and establish a leading council that govern the country for a period of time that's not exceeding 24 months. And every member of this leading council should not put their hands up for re-election. So we need a temporary governing body to this country, and we need to have a total ban on weapons in Iraq, because the weapons are in the hands of different militias, and they control the place. So I'm sorry, I do have big feeling for people inside that country. Iraq is 38 million people now. I remember the days when Iraq was 6 million, and it's a disaster that we have reproduction rate of 6.5%. It's the highest in the world, and that shows ignorance, lack of education, and problems, and the whole country's wealth is going to basically salaries, and a lot of these salaries are phantom salaries with people do not exist but on paper. So I'll give you a brief of my history, and I congratulate Dr. Faiq Isa for his work. Actually, it deserves acknowledgement. We publish here in Sydney every 19.5 days, and I was referenced once in the New England Journal of Medicine, and I carry this as a badge of honor more than being the Australian of the Year for New South Wales, to be honest. But publishing in the Lancet in 1981 is a really big deal. So congratulations for that work. So Baghdad, this is Tahrir Square, and as you can see, that was in the old days, and look at it now. It's there are many people there calling for help from that place. The Iraqi royal family tried to bring Iraq to the stage of the world, and unfortunately they did not get given the chance because of the revolutions that followed. This is my father. My father was the Chief Justice of Iraq during the monarch, and that's me. And their family decided to, stay in the dark just to raise me up and live in peace because of the effect of the Ba'ath Party. Despite that, I did manage to go to a very good school, Baghdad College, and a lot of you have graduated or have relatives that graduated from this prestigious school. And funny enough, every time my colleagues, especially in orthopedic surgery, ask me, where did you go to school? And I always say Baghdad Grammar, because it does carry the same level. This is in the operating theater with one of my bosses, basically. And I had to leave Iraq because of the atrocities that were committed against human beings. I ended up being on a leaky boat, not dissimilar to many Iraqis that came to this country. And we suffered a harrowing journey getting here. And upon arrival, I was given a new name for almost a year, 982. We stayed in tents for months and months in Curtin Detention Center. It was hell on earth, and I don't need to elaborate on that because a lot of you have suffered the same. This was my cupboard, basically, and that's my stretcher where I stayed. And I spent some time in the naughty box where they keep troublemakers, and this is a picture that I managed to take of one of the officers. And then after being released from the detention center, I managed to pursue my dream of making the Terminator. So I did work very hard in my home mainly, and we managed to get osseointegration surgery to see the light, and it became reality as many things in medicine for centuries have been treated in a different way, and we came up with this new idea of directly implanting a prosthesis into the residual limb, following the work that has been done in dentistry for decades, basically. And I give the credit to dentists. They most of the time they are ahead of us. They invented cement. They invented tooth implant, and we basically followed them with their path. It does change people's lives and give them their mobility back, basically, and the dignity of living without the need of help. And majority of our patients go back to recreational activities. We expanded on the work with basically upper limb technology, where we integrated the brachial plexus with the robotic arms. And you can see the band that this guy is wearing. He's one of my American patients. And it becomes mind control prosthesis, where he think about moving his limb, and the limb obeys his commands. And well, I have few ideas about hooking the arm with Swiss Army knife and camera and all sorts of stuff, and maybe detach and go and get a can of beer from the fridge and bring it back to him. But we'll see. And then I get bored very quickly, so I received a phone call. One day I was going to Cafe Sydney in the city, and I received a phone call from international destination, and someone was calling Dr. Munjid, and I said, yes, it is Dr. Munjid, and I was a bit rude because he didn't introduce himself, and was on the hands-free in the car, and he said, well, I need to talk to you, and I said, what can I do for you? And he said, well, the Iraqi Prime Minister was Abadi back then, would like to speak to you about coming back to Iraq to help us. And that was the first call I received. It was in early 2017. Mind you, in 2008, and when I went to Dubai, and there was the Arab Health conference where I met the Iraqi delegate, and funny enough, there were representatives from all around the world, and the Iraqi delegation was the only delegation that has pictures of their leaders, like it was Jalal Talabani and Maliki, and I mentioned it, and I said, have you noticed that everybody put their flags except you guys put pictures of your people? And he said, oh, we are honored to have them as leaders. And I said, yeah, and you were honored to have Saddam Hussein as a leader as well, so there is no hope for this country. And then I said, apart from the politics, I'm happy to come and help Iraqis in Iraq, and I'll pay for my trip, I'll pay for my staff, just provide me a hospital to work in and security. And he said, and what's our cut? And I said, I don't know if you get what I'm saying. I'm giving you this for free, so you can have 25% off the zero. And so there you go. And he said, well, write me a letter, and I'll take it to the Deputy Minister of Health, and the Deputy Minister of Health will see if it's worthwhile doing, and then we'll write back to you. And I said, well, I'm sorry, I'm in the wrong place. But then things changed. We received this phone, and to be honest, it was, I think, February, and I called my staff, and I said, cancel our work for that period of time, and then I booked my flight straight away without hesitation. I was in Baghdad within a month, basically, to see the place. And this is what we do basically, and we take staff with us, and I fund everything myself because I don't want to be tinted with allegations that we're getting support from any organization. We work at Ibn Sina Hospital, and funny enough, for some reason, Iraqis are so suspicious people. I went there, and the first person spoke to me. He said, "Oh yeah, you all come here to take our wealth because we are a very wealthy country." And I said, "I don't think you get it, mate. And, we what I earn in one day in Australia, it's equivalent to whole salary of your hospital, you idiot." But anyway, but that's the mentality of these people, and then you see posts on Facebook from Iraqis inside, and they say, "Oh yeah, Munjid has no work in Sydney. That's why he come and try to learn with them and get trained with our people." So obviously you get all these kind of people, but that doesn't stop us. The main thing is that to serve these people who are needing the help, and unfortunately there are opportunists, and there are people who want to take advantage of the help, and parties, and always try to take the opportunity to promote themselves. But regardless, we do a lot of work. So we have been to Iraq 7 times, and every trip we stay for a week or so. One trip we stayed 3 weeks, and we exhausted the whole system over there, and we drained every resource they had. So we were not going to do that again. I cancelled the trip in August, unfortunately, because of the sanctions on Iran, which you might ask yourself, why the hell, what does this has to do with it? Yeah, it does, because Iraq is the little backyard of Iran at the moment. So anything affect Iran, affect Iraq. But in December we will go again, and mainly to treat victims of the uprising now. So on average we do around 80 to 90 cases. We've done 554 operations so far, and we have seen more than 4,000 patients in Iraq in these 7 trips. The first day I arrived to Iraq, they said, "Oh, we will prepare 10 patients for you to see," and then I was bombarded with 220 patients, basically in the green zone. And then you discover that people started paying to come and see us. They pay $60 to people to get them through the security checkpoints, which is absolutely disgraceful, and but that's how the country is, unfortunately. But you may decide and say, no, I don't want to go, I don't want to participate in this kind of work, but then you think and you change your mind, because you have to help, you have to do something regardless. And if you can see here, a majority of our patients belong to the Hajj al-Sha'bi, and to their credit, I come from a Sunni background. My family are Sunni, so I have nothing to do with Iran or the Hajj or whatever it is, but I'm regarded as their doctor now, and to be honest, they are the ones who look after their people, and they are the ones who have the funding. I want something, they go and get it, while the other group, like the police and the Ministry of the Ministry of Defense, they are funded by the government, but nobody give a shit about these people. And the least people that are helped are the poor civilians, because nobody care about them, and mainly the children. So what I did, as a result of learning about what's going on in there and the politics behind it, I made a quota. And I decided that for every 2 Hajj or military, I treat 1 child. And otherwise I would not operate, and I forced them to bring civilians in to the place. Majority of the patients, unfortunately, are males, because they are blast injuries, or females, they just sit at home and they don't get to see us. And you can see a lot of the treatment are complex lower limb injuries, mainly from bullets and landmines, and so we did a lot of reconstructive surgery and a lot of osseointegration surgery, and a lot of people thought that we're crazy by doing this high-end technology to people who are living in Iraq, that majority of them have no education and cannot read and write, and they live in the middle of nowhere in villages. But the problem is, these people, if they don't get access to this technology, they end up in a wheelchair, because they don't have any facility of having socket prosthesis or the traditional method of treatment. And to our surprise, they did very well, and they have the best success rate. And funny enough, one of our contraindication for the surgery is smoking. So I saw the first 50 cases, and they were all smokers, and I said, no surgery for you. And then someone nodded on my shoulder, and they said, by the way, all of our patients are smokers. So we called them back, and we did 154 osseointegration surgeries. 152 of them are smokers, so 2 were non-smokers, and I advised them to take on cigarettes so they don't affect our statistics. And you can see all these shrapnels in there, and we try to bring our technology to sorry? From doing hip and knee surgery on Australian patients. from doing hip and knee surgery on Australian patients. So I funded myself. So basically, you know,
can you have just 2 minutes?
yeah, sure. We do physiotherapy, and we try to bring the work that we have, and that's Claudia, my partner, is set up a good rehabilitation program for them, and she tried to practice in Arabic, and she's learning Arabic, and then you can see, and she started getting covered as well, and basically with the rest of the people, and you can see the smile on these people's faces when they get the treatment. So it does make us feel very worthy of the work, and this is their basically wound care management, and there is nothing better than the Iraqi sun, basically, and we treat a lot of patients with significant amount of injuries. And then we moved on to, and you can see I challenge anyone who can tell me which leg is the amputated leg for this patient. And when you look at it, he has both legs gone, basically. So we made a lot of friends and we made a lot of enemies. So I think the next trip or the trip after I might get killed, but it's worth it. And then we started treating a lot of injuries, but at the same time we have a lot of fun. We go and visit shrines and marketplaces, and we're surrounded by security. And one day I was and sorry, Sam. One day I was asked by one of the nurses, and he said, "Oh, you're going to this place tomorrow. How many people will be with you, and which way are you going?" And I said, "Why are you asking that question?" He said, "Maybe I have some connection with Asaib, and they might take you for ransom." And as simple as that. But we feel more comfortable that the Australian embassy is next door to us, and they welcome us, and they've been very generous with us. That their door is open to us all the time, basically, and we took a lot of technology that is cutting edge in the world, like muscle and cage treatment in Iraq. But what makes a huge difference is treating these children, and you can see the deformities that these kids have. This is one of Bowie's. We call him Bowie basically because he has bowed legs, and unfortunately, a lot of these patients get sent to on the expense of the Iraqi government to Iran or India, and they get this kind of treatment, and you can see a plate sticking outside their shoulder leg. This patient, his wife was in her last trimester of pregnancy, and he's blind. He has one arm, one leg, and they fused his shoulder that way. So I chopped off his leg basically and let him walk, and that was before he was getting reconstructive surgery. We start the day at 7. We go to breakfast at 7:30. We get picked up at 8. We start operating at 8:30. We finish at 10 p.m. and then operating, and we do on average 12 to 15 cases, and then at 10 p.m. we start our clinic, and the clinic goes to 3 a.m. in the morning. So I'm sorry I don't get use of the sleep apnea stuff. And we started doing robotic arms as well. And this guy is an Iraqi soldier and do not write, but he can operate a robotic arm. That's 1 hour after he's got fitted with it, and you can see what he can do with it. A lot of dignitaries asked us to take a photo with them, and we became important for their election campaigns, and I don't know who the hell they are, but anyway. So Mazgoof is nice, and we went to Mutanabbi Square, and unfortunately it's very sad, and this picture particularly saddens me a lot, and you can see that's the chariot of the Iraqi king, and it's covered by Al-Hashd flag, and it was one of my missions to go and take that flag off because this is inappropriate. And anyway, so that's Baghdad. And then you see all these deformities in these kids. This little girl was 16, and the deformities that we see are not described in anything. And but the smile on these, I get teary when I see this picture every time. I'm sorry, but you can see that's what makes the difference. That these kids, it's terrible. Anyway. That's my stuff at the end of the day, and that's a couple of my patients having a fag outside the hospital, despite it says no guns, no. Thank you.
Thank you. Great work and great journey. Thank you, Mujid, for sharing it with us, and we wish you all the best and safe trips every time you go to Iraq. I'll just introduce you with the plug of appreciation from our association to all the services you provided to Iraq.
The next speaker is Dr. Abir As-Sadoun. Dr. Sadoun is an associate professor and the IT course coordinator at the Charles Sturt University. She arrived here in Australia as a refugee in 2009. Her major work is on surgery using augmented and mixed reality, and she's going to tell us about her work. And she anticipates some cooperation between the clinicians and herself. Thank you, Dr. Abir.
Thanks for having me here today. My background from IT. My PhD degree in software engineering, and mainly my work in early detecting cancer, and my postdoctorate in IT. I was working as a senior lecturer in University of Technology, Baghdad. I left Baghdad in 2007 to Syria and applied for asylum in Australia, and I was granted women at risk visa, and I came to Australia in 2009. I started my job as a professor at Charles Sturt University and as an e-health research scientist. And my work mainly was related to early detecting cancer in different fields. Using the latest technology and latest algorithm, and mainly we worked with, and still we are working with deep learning neural network on early detecting cancer and classification. My career has changed in 2016 when I experienced a severe infection in the left side of my face, and I had to be under 5 to 6 drainage surgeries in course of a year. So I was asking myself why they couldn't solve the problem, and then the last drainage surgery, I realized they haven't put me fully in sleep, and then I realized the surgeon cannot see deeply or in-depth perception the infected area because they are not opening from outside the face. They had to work from inside the mouth. So at the end of the year, 2017, I hosted a guest from Japan, And he was talking about the latest technologies that used in different fields, and he was talking about augmented reality, that we can use it in police, in security, in different fields. Then I was asking myself why I'm not using this technology for depth perception, solve the problem of depth perception that the surgeon face in different type of surgery. So then, before I go what I have done, I just want to tell you what the augmented reality means. The surgeon usually use the CT scan or 3D image, if it is MRI or CT scan, to pre-plan for the surgery. This is the traditional method, and some of them using video-guided surgery, which is rely on 2D video, which is displayed and monitor in the screen of his computer. But the augmented reality is taking the image, 3D image from pre-surgery, and there is a camera taking a video throughout the surgery, real-time video, throughout the surgery, and this camera superimposed on the area that the surgeon worked on it, and taking 2D segments from this video and registered with the 3D image pre-surgery. So I don't like to talk in details because it takes time. To solve my problem, I had to work on oral maxillofacial surgery. I used the augmented reality. I used the augmented reality in this type of surgery, and we proposed a new solution, and this is the green border, our proposed solution. And we improved the accuracy by generating 3D video in real time. If the surgery takes like 3 to 5 hours, so continuously we generate this video to the surgeon, and he is using Google Glass, and the video, he can see the video here. And we work mainly on accuracy, and this is our proposed solution, and we improved the accuracy here by reducing the overlay, by reducing the overlay error of the video that we are generating. Accuracy is the main important things, because the surgeon will rely on us, on the video, I mean, that we are generating when he cut. Later on, in 2017, I had to be under 4 to 5 plastic surgery because my left side of my face already gone. The tissue gone, the bacteria damaged everything. I had to be under 4 fat transfer surgery, and the last surgery, main surgery, was related to solve the symmetry problem that I had in my face. So my plastic surgeon, Professor Anand Deva, he is the head of plastic surgery in Macquarie University. He has gone through my article, published article that published in Q1 level journal, the previous one related to oral and maxillofacial surgery. It's published in International Journal of Medical Robotic and Computer Assisted Surgery, which is level B journal. So he gone through the article, so he asked me to work with him, and he has given me a problem. He said, when I need to see the blood vessel before I cut the breast and before I put the implant. And I worked with him, and with Dr. Journey, he's a director of trauma in Westmead Public Hospital and senior lecturer in Macquarie University, and we got amazing results, and this is our proposed solution, and we published in a Q2 level journal, level B journal. Later on, I worked on different field, and I worked with oral and maxillofacial surgeon, Dr. Sami Haddad and Dr. Ahmed Arobey. We worked of using augmented reality for visualizing and localizing of cancer. And we published our work in International Journal of Medical Robotic and Computer Assisted Surgery, which is a Q2 level journal. And also I worked on in using augmented reality for knee replacement surgery. And also, this is part of my result, by the way. We usually doing the test, 20 samples we're doing, and the comprehensive test to make sure the accuracy really improved. And this is our proposed solution. I also worked in the field of visualize the hidden organs and internal structures in surgery. And we worked with jaw surgery, constructive jaw surgery. The oral and maxillofacial surgeon, he has given me problem. He told me when I operate in jaw surgery, I need to see the blood vessel that's usually under the jaw and also the root canal, because this is the very risk area for the oral surgeon when he worked in jaw surgery. So I worked with him and I proposed a new solution. This is our proposed solution, and we have got amazing results and published our work in oral and maxillofacial surgery journal, which is a Q2 level journal. Later on, Professor Diba introduced me to other surgeon, and this surgeon, he told me I was in America, and I heard about something like the surgeon able to do the surgery in, for the patient in rural area or like in Iraq, but well, he should be here in Sydney. So I searched a lot how can solve the problem to the surgeon. Then when I searched, I found the latest technology that I'm able to use. It's called mixed reality. When I searched a lot, I couldn't find any researcher worked on this technology, and only one paper published by Harvard University, and all definitions, all theoretical. So I had to go through this paper and analyze every single word and make a plan and create 3 projects from this paper and work on it practically. So the first project that I worked on it, how to generate the augmented video from local area. From local area means the surgery, the surgery site, and send to the surgeon here in Sydney. And how the expert surgeon can merge his hand on the right area and generate the virtual model and send back to the surgeon there in local area, which is has less experience. And if this is definitely in real time, if the surgery takes 5 hours, the real-time video going and come back within 3 hours. Then I proposed a new solution, and my work published in a Q1 level journal, level A. It was the first research in the world that applied practically. And this is the results. This is past a sample of my results. We applied these results on breast samples and jaw samples. And the surgeons that worked with me, Dr. Haddad, oral and maxillofacial surgeon, Professor Diba, plastic surgeon, and Dr. Jeremy Jenner, surgeon. So the second one, I had to consider the network, like if the surgeon operates from here with the surgeon in Iraq, we have to consider the network, real-time network, because if there is disconnect, that means that patient will be gone. So we worked also on other projects, and our projects related to network side has published in a Q1 level journal in International Journal of Computer Assisted Radiology and Surgery. Also I worked on security, because I have to consider consider the security, I had to work on authentication, who you are, and also the data transmission, because the video going back and the audio and text sometimes, so if someone have this network, so it will be big trouble. This work, I'm the leader in this work, but we are work as a team. The surgeon gave me the real problem that he faced in his surgery, and also I have other team work with me as a consultant. Like, I'm not network specialist or network security specialist, so I had to meet one of network specialists, 5 minutes only, give me some words, and I had to work and search about these words to accomplish the project. Also, proofreader, another doctors and professors worked with me here in Sydney, in America, in Dubai, in Iraq, in a professional way to make it ready to get published in high-ranking journal. So if someone really interesting to be involved in our team, this is my email address and this is my mobile number. From 2009 up to now, I have received 20 Excellence in Research and Teaching Awards. And recently, I have been in the final list of emerging leader in government and public sector because of my contribution in public hospital. This is
Can I ask Dr. Selwa Kirkukli to present a plaque to Professor Abir Sadu? I now ask Dr. Jamal Moran to come and talk to us about how the licensorship of foreign medical doctors to practice in Australia, and the events that happened in the late 80s. Dr. Murad arrived here in 1985, and I think he is the first Iraqi doctor who passed the AMC exams. Dr. Murad.
Thank you for asking me and appreciate this invitation. I thank Dr. Fire. He helped me a lot with this slide. I'm good in photography, we share photography, but he's good in computer. First, I want to tell our friend that the Asian American is a joke. What are you doing in Iraq? They said, we don't know how our oil went under their soil. I am there because of the Iraqi oil. I thought they all in Australia, but they all back in Iraq. Their oil, not our oil. We shouldn't talk about it. If you talk about it, you have to pay in blood. This is reality. People, they don't know this. We suffer, the Iraqis, because of the oil. That is the reality. But now I'm talking about this. This is a very, really long story. It was when I arrived here, I arrived as a refugee. I fled Baghdad. Iraq, I was in Erbil working, director of Center of Allah. I fled Iraq to walking on feet with 2 kids and my wife to Iran. And I worked 4.5 years in Iran. They kicked me out from Iran also because I believe in democracy and human rights, nothing else. We are all of us human before anything. And that is what I believe in it. Humanity first come, later on come everything else. Religious, nationalism, that is different issues. Yes. I said it's like, I want to talk about what's happened when we arrived here. I arrived this country, I was alone. I looking for any Iraqi doctor, I couldn't find anyone. I have no friends. Like someone, you put them among people, you don't know. Our English wasn't so well. We know, scientific English was good. But we couldn't communicate the ordinary English with people. I arrived this country, in June 87. Some Iraqi people invited me, and some Kurdish people among them. One of them, a doctor from Iran. The first thing he told me, instead of advising what to do, he told me, never think you'll be a doctor in Australia. I looked at him, I told him, I want one thing, I believe in myself. If you are not a doctor, I'm a doctor. And I prove it, that I will be a doctor in Australia. Yeah. We started, it was very difficult when we arrived in Australia. Then you have first, they put a difficult examination and talk about it. We have very difficult, they want certain, we have to contact the AMC. And AMC, Australian, and the AMC they have, to get your registration, there was Australian Medical Council. Australian Medical Council, they have yearly 2 times examination every year, MCQ examination. And the other part was, you have to do after first the English examination, you have to pass it. But later on they changed the system, it wasn't important, the English examination, you can pass it any time. But at the beginning, when we arrived there, first you have to do the English. After you pass the English examination, you are eligible to sit for the MCQ examination. The MCQ examination took about 3.5 hours. And every time you have to sit at the beginning was, you are paying about $600. Later on, they make $1,000. But what the problem wasn't that. The problem was the number of the people who passed the examination was very low. All over Australia, every year, they used to pass between, later I did statistics about it. I confronted them with it. Because these people you have, when you talk with them, you have to talk with statistics. It's not useless to talk with them like this. You don't understand. You should have a proof in your hand that that is injustice. Yeah. MCQ examination take 3.5 hours. And only every year about 90 to 100 people pass it. I did statistics in about 10 years. That's the MCQ examination. After the MCQ examination, when you pass it, you have to pass a clinical examination. The MCQ was multiple choice. The clinicals were directly, you have to go, and beside the clinical, we have an oral examination. We have to pass it again. We have 3 examinations you have to pass. And there was a lot of obstacles. And as you know, disease wherever you go. But the prevalence of disease is different. And the approach in different countries are different. Clinical approach. That's we lack it. We didn't know about these things. So during this period, we try hard to understand what's going on. A lot of people used to fail. And nearly about 2,000 to 3,000 people all over Australia used to sit for the examination. In Sydney, about 400 people used to sit for that examination. The first thing really, when I did English test, I haven't money. I borrowed $600 from a friend to get my registration. You want to, yeah. They wanted to go very short about it because they are short time. Yeah. We have to preparation to this MCQ examination. For the preparation, we have nothing. We didn't know what to do. And AMC, they give us certain information to allow us, give you information and give you some references to read it. But this multiple books, medicine books, everyone can read a book, go to library, but they allow us to go to the open us the medical library in Westmead Hospital. Westmead Hospital. In Westmead Hospital we met a lot of friends, we met some relations there, And during this relation, we saw the doctor, we saw why the pass rate is very low. They used to do a care. It doesn't matter how many people pass the examination. They download the care and they only took certain number of the students. Yeah. After that, we come with the other friend to agree we should find a way. These people was not fair what they were doing, especially AMC and AMA. They were very strong. They were have a strong lobby in the government. So that we are lucky we come across meeting with some Lebanese guys, Lebanese Council, really Arab Lebanese Council. They help us a lot and advise us what to do and make a big meeting for us, all the doctors from all backgrounds. We come together and we sit, and during this meeting we elected few members of us. One of them was Dr. Dalati, a chairman. He was Lebanese. We have some Iranian doctors, 2 Iranian doctors with us. One of them, some of them I remember them, Asad Razaki, Sama. There was another girl. We have one who's Australian who graduated from Germany. Yeah, we get. I can't recall all of them because it's long ago, and it's painful experience. I don't want to remember it. For that, I want always to forget it. We sat there with these people. We became the committee to represent them. They elected us. And we represent them, we have a meeting, and we're thankful for Mr. Nicholas Shahedi that he passed away. And we have a meeting with the Australian Medical Council and Chairman, Australian Medical Council Secretary, and there were other people from the ethnic affairs. They help us with this problem. We sit together and we discuss the issues. At first they told us, no, this fair, we asked them, look, there's either way. Either we have to sit with the final year of the Sydney University, the same examination, they didn't accept it. The other proposal we give them, that they should arrange certain courses for us so we know what to do, which direction we go. We are here, we don't know what's going on. They agree about this. And there was another thing, the IMN local federal government allowed the overseas doctor to work voluntarily in countryside. They refused it. Yeah, and the other thing, only thing they agree about it to give us the training. And they gave us training in Lidcombe Hospital, and thank you. We will be thankful for certain doctors, Australian, like us. They are like us. There are good people among them, and there are some people among them are racist. And everywhere we go, the same thing. Even in our country, we see people from city to city, they don't like each other. Racist. But these people were very protected, especially the AMA. We decide to make a demonstration. We make a demonstration in Sydney, in Hyde Park, and we went to Minister of Health, local Minister of Health of Sydney. He sent the secretary, because we learned how to lobby and how to unite. Unity and lobbying is very important in Australia, and how to plan to approach them. The Minister of Health, local Minister of Health in Sydney at that time, we sent after 2 of us, we were the head of the demonstration, and he told us to come to see me without any journalists. I don't want publicity. We went, we talked to him. He said, look, I want all of you. But AMA, they don't live. AMA, they are very powerful lobby. And I told them, look, it doesn't matter, AMA is powerful lobby. But only we want fair go. We don't ask anything. We don't say, just bring us and let us work. Because you have the right, the patient, you should assess our knowledge. We don't ask you anything more than that. Treat us fairly like Australian. We are now Australian citizens. We are not foreigners. We were Australian citizens at that time. Because in 2 years you become Australian citizen at that time. Yeah. They decided they make this committee with Dr. Nicholas Shahidi and we come out with the outcome. They open for us certain courses. Lidcombe Hospital prepare us for the examination, and before we go on the course, they did for us an examination to choose, because they have limited number of places. So these are mainly the people, they choose them, and there was a nice girl running the course, Mira her name. From the people I just remember them all. I recall them, Dr. O'Connor, the cardiologist, now he works in Liverpool. There was another doctor called Shaheen, and there was a Dr. Smith, he was a general practitioner at Fairfield Hospital. And they arranged for us to have, prepare us for the examination. And I am happy that that group, nearly all of them, they passed the examination, the MCQ examination. Later on, we have for a clinical. The clinical really, not, I don't know, now change the system. You have to see the patient, you go to hospital, and you have 2 examiners, and they give you 1 long case and 2 short cases. After you finish that, you get someone oral examination.
1 more minute.
Yeah. And I am lucky I passed the examination, but it's still, they ask us during this meeting to work in countryside after we pass the examination. We as a committee refuse overseas Australian Doctor Committee, OTDA, we refuse this, and we say, because of this difficult examination, we should work like any other Australian. You have a right to choose where to work. You have no right to send us to the country. If you send your student to country, we go. But because the examination was so difficult, most of these doctors, they are graduated, they were very, very good prepared, and they had good knowledge, because they usually choose the top, among the doctors, the top groups. And really, this is part of the history of Australia and part of our history in this country. And now all of us are Australia. Yeah, but I hope the next generation after us, they come, at least we could advise them what to do, what direction to go. But as I told you at the beginning, it wasn't easy, believe me. When you don't know where, like someone in the boat with no any compass in the middle of the sea, you have to find your way.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Now call for the last part of the session before lunch, and we would like, as we acknowledged the first doctor GP, or one of the first overseas doctors and their fight, we'd like to acknowledge the first overseas registered dentist in Australia, not only Iraqi, but the first overseas registered dentist in Australia, Dr. Salwa Shahada.
Thank you very much for the association for this opportunity. I graduated in Iraq in 75, worked in Sayed for 2 years, and then came to Australia in the beginning of 79. Now, I arrived on Thursday. On Monday, I went to the dental hospital. I did the exam of 3 days. 2 weeks later, I passed, and I was the first one to pass the exam that was set by the Australian standard. I was told they couldn't believe that there is a standard of dentistry outside Australia, the way they saw it in Iraqi dentists. They didn't know where Iraq was. There was no Iraqis around. I worked for 9 months at the dental hospital, and then I opened a private practice, and I've been there since. Over the 40 years that I have been working as a dentist in Australia, I've met so many beautiful, talented, lovely friends. I can call them friends now. as doctors, dentists, pharmacists, they all present what Iraq was. I came from Iraq that has a private, there's education free, medicine was free. When we graduate, we were all allocated to rural areas. There was hospitals, clinics everywhere in Iraq. Looking at Iraq now, it makes my heart bleed. And I hope this will be a beginning. What's happening in Iraq will be the beginning of us going back to the Iraq that we knew, to the universities that we came from, and the schools that we graduated from. Thank you very much for everyone, and I'm so proud to be part of this beautiful group here, that I was the first one to be in, and hopefully it will grow bigger and Iraq will go back eventually to us. Thank you very much.
Can I ask a question? So when you arrived, by the time you arrived and you qualified, how many days?
I arrived on Monday. I did the written exam back home at the time. I did it
Yes.
in the Iraqi, in the British consulate.
Yes.
And then I arrived to Australia on a Thursday, and I went to the dental hospital on Monday. I did the exam Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and then 2 weeks later the results came up, and I was the first one and the only one that passed at that time. I was told that it has been going for 7 years, and I asked one of the people that were doing the exam. I thought he was a tutor or something, and he said, "No, me do exam 7 times, no one passed, don't worry." I worry. And I passed, and I'm so proud that I was an Iraqi from a university or from a country that they didn't even know where it was. They asked me where Iraq is, and I have to draw a map, and I showed them where Iraq was. And it was I was so upset that 2 years later they told me, now we know where Iraq was, because in 81 the Iraq-Iran war started.
Yeah. They always mix between Iraq and Iran.
That's right, yes,
Yeah.
they always, but when I came in, even Iran wasn't on the map. So when the war started, they knew where Iraq was.
Yeah.
And then a couple of years later, they know what Saddam was, and now we know where we are. Thank you very much.
If you don't mind, giving the plaque to Dr. Smith. Before we end this session, I will ask Sam, Dr. Suhaili, to present the prize for the best abstract submitted to this meeting. The scientific committee has chosen an abstract that was submitted by Dr. Laith Barnouti, and this is a little gift to say thank you. It's time for lunch, the best part of this meeting, so enjoy it, and we'll see you after.